Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It's midnight here in Algiers. You're watching World News program on All 24 News. I'm Karim Fazakri, your host for tonight. Coming up next. Gaza once again is under intensive Zionist bombing, and the UN is warning of doubling genocide toll after recovering bodies from under rubble and due to diseases. Stay tuned for the insights. "26 Palestinians were martyred in a new Zionist bombardment on the Shifa medical complex, and El Oud, a hospital, was also stormed days after it was besieged and bombed. And what's the story behind Human Rights Watch accusing the occupation of using starvation as a war tactic? Find out next. Occupation admits 5 soldiers were killed as resistance strikes back on multiple fronts. Footage of the frontline showdown also coming up. And Africa Unites for Peace, Iran seminar in Algeria concludes with forward-looking agreements to tackle continent security challenges. Tune in for details after the break. Hello again and welcome to the program. First, an in-depth look at the unfortunate unfolding events in the occupied Palestinian territories. Dozens of Palestinians were killed and many others were injured in airstrikes by Zionist occupation in Gaza on Monday. The attacks targeted multiple areas, including Ad-Daraj and Al-Amal neighborhoods. The toll rose to 151 in a massacre in Jabalia camp. Homes were bombed, leaving dozens missing under the rubble. Urgent calls for a ceasefire and international intervention to prevent further casualties were also made. The details with Zara Fujani.
In the Gaza Strip, the harrowing and persistent attack by Zionist forces leaves in its wake brutal massacres. One surpasses the other with sheer atrocity. The recent horror unfolded in the city of Jabalia, where hundreds were martyred, a devastating toll predominantly comprised of innocent women and children. From Sunday to Monday, the occupiers' aircrafts mercilessly struck the homes of Palestinian civilians in Jabalia al-Balad. The aftermath was a chilling mosaic of destruction, where the missiles tore bodies into scattered pieces and reduced entire buildings to rubble.
This is morning in Jabalia, after the occupation committed a massacre last night against Al-Borj and Alwan families. They directly targeted homes, including the one of the Suleiman family.
The Old Gaza massacre, a frightening chapter, saw the tragic killing of more than 50 children from Al-Borj, Alwan and Suleiman families. Their young lives were cut short and their remains left entangled under the debris.
These martyrs are Al-Borj family and Suleiman family in the massacre in Jabalia al-Balad. These 2 children are twins and this little girl too.
Simultaneously, the new Jabalia massacre unfolded amidst a barbaric Zionist bombing campaign targeting residential complexes around the city. The aftermath was a torrent of serious injuries among civilians, with many unable to reach hospitals. The occupation forces heartlessly prevented ambulances from reaching the wounded.
Whatever type of injuries we receive, we'll work here as best we can. We have one radiology device that we use for imaging and also have laboratory. Today, through primitive methods, we were able to transfer some units of blood to the seriously wounded people.
These genocidal acts, perpetrated by the Zionist entity, unveil a desperate attempt to achieve military goals in the face of resolute resistance, thwarting them on the ground. Unfortunately, civilians are caught in the crossfires and their lives hanging in the balance, struggling for survival.
Zionist bombing at Gaza's Al-Shifa medical complex focused on the specialized surgical building killed 26 displaced Palestinians, with others sustaining serious injuries. Shockingly, the entrance to the medical complex continues to face continuous fire, further hindering emergency response efforts. Al-Auda Hospital, for its part, was also raided by Zionist occupation forces, detaining its medical staff following days of siege and bombings. After enduring 4 hours of interrogation in inhumane conditions, the staff were released, but the director remains in custody. Human Rights Watch affirmed on Monday that the Zionist occupation is employing starvation war tactics in the besieged Gaza Strip, constituting a war crime. The organization stated that the occupation forces deliberately hinder the delivery of water, food, and fuel, while also obstructing humanitarian aid intentionally. More on the story with Salman Asseb.
In the Gaza Strip, the Zionist occupation stands accused of restoring to a controversial method of warfare, starvation of civilians. Human Rights Watch categorizes this strategy as a war crime, pointing to the deliberate blockage of essential supplies, including water, food and fuel.
For over 2 months, Israel has been depriving Gaza's population of food and water, policies spurred on or endorsed by high-ranking Israeli officials, and inflicting an intent to starve civilians as a method of warfare. World leaders should be speaking out against this abhorrent war crime, which has devastating effects on Gaza's population.
This tactic not only violates international humanitarian law, which strictly prohibits the deprivation of objects indispensable to survival, but also worsens the already dire humanitarian situation in the Strip.
The Israeli government is doubling its collective punishment of civilians and preventing humanitarian aid by cruelly using starvation as a weapon of war. The worsening humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza requires an urgent and effective response from the international community.
Amid ground operation in northern Gaza, Zionist forces are reported to have further exacerbated shortages. Orchards, fields, and greenhouses have fallen victim to this destruction, compounding the difficulties in obtaining food.
The Israeli government should immediately cease using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. The government should restore water and electricity access and allow desperately needed food, medical aid and fuel into Gaza, including via its crossing at Karam Abu Salim.
Human Rights Watch's strong condemnation adds to this growing global outcry against the escalating humanitarian crisis imposed by the Zionist occupation, which keeps on breaking all international humanitarian laws under protection of Western countries.
And in the aftermath of this Zionist aggression, the death toll in the Gaza Strip has surged to 19,453, as reported by the Palestinian Ministry of Health. The number of injuries has climbed to 52,286 since the onset of the aggression on October 7th. And in this context, UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, highlighted that casualties in Gaza doubled after rubble removal. In an interview with the Financial Times, he emphasized the unknown number of martyrs still under the debris. Griffiths pointed out that disease and hunger have become the leading causes of death in the region, exacerbating the current humanitarian catastrophe.
The number of deaths due to diseases may be several times higher than the number of deaths caused by military operations and airstrikes. However, statistics might change radically once the rubble is cleared.
On Monday, the Zionist army reported 5 soldiers killed and another injured in clashes with Palestinian resistance in southern Gaza. The total acknowledged deaths since October 7th now stand at 459 soldiers and officers. Meanwhile, Palestinian resistance targeted Zionist forces in the northern Gaza Strip with the Islamic Jihad movement's Al-Quds brigades bombing military concentrations. Footage showed the resistance hitting a Zionist vehicle with an anti-tank missile in northern Gaza. The Hamas movement's military wing, Al-Qassam brigades, also engaged in clashes with Zionist forces in Gaza City, sharing video clips of targeting soldiers and vehicles. Al-Qassam Brigade's Hamas's military wing released a video showcasing a tunnel discovered by the Zionist occupation army in Gaza. The footage, titled "You Arrived Late, Mission Accomplished," featured Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant near the 4-kilometer-long tunnel's entrance, situated close to the Erez crossing and an Israeli military base, as reported by the Associated Press. The video depicts intense battles between resistance members and occupation forces, culminating in the capture of 3 soldiers by Al-Qassam. On Monday, the UN Security Council is set to vote on a proposal for humanitarian aid entry into Gaza via land, sea, and air. The draft resolution's fate depends on negotiations between the US, with veto power, and the UAE, which drafted the text and includes a UN monitoring mechanism. In reaction, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh urged an end to aggression and occupation, cautioning against delays in addressing Zionist forces' actions in Gaza and the West Bank.
What we want now is to stop war, the aggression and killing, and the invasions in Gaza and West Bank. In Gaza there is a time of blood, and in Gaza there is a time of hunger, demolition and destruction. Stop the war now. This occupation must end, and the world and the United Nations are required to set a timetable to end the occupation and the suffering of our people. They want administrative security authority. We are a national authority struggling to embody the state on the ground, leading to independence and ending the occupation.
And in recent development, the United States on Monday said it was setting up an international maritime coalition to counter escalation attacks by Yemen's Houthis on vital Red Sea shipping lanes. According to U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, these attacks are reckless, dangerous, and they violate international law. He added that they were acting to build an international coalition to address this threat. He said a virtual meeting on Tuesday would bring together ministers from Middle Eastern countries to address the issue and warned Iran to stop supporting the Houthi attacks. Yemen's Houthis said earlier they had attacked 2 Israeli-linked vessels in the Red Sea in solidarity with Gaza, as more companies hold transit through the troubled but vital waterway. Hundreds of demonstrators rallied in front of the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Netherlands, in solidarity with Palestine and to condemn Zionist aggression on Gaza. The Nakba March participants, traveling on foot from Leiden in the south, covered a 21-kilometer distance chanting Arabic and English slogans, urging an end to the genocide in Gaza.
It works. There's so many people. So let's see. But it already...
Similarly, the Moroccan Front for Supporting Palestine and Against Normalization has urged the entire Moroccan population to participate in a national march in Rabat next Sunday. The goal is to strongly demand an end to normalization with the Zionist entity. The front, comprising numerous anti-normalization bodies and organizations, emphasized that the march is a response to the ongoing war and destruction waged by the Zionist entity against Palestine. The call also highlights the international community's disregard for UN resolutions addressing war crimes and crimes against humanity. Our program is still underway, and also in the news bulletin on Monday, Algerian Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi conveyed President Abdelmajid Tebboun's condolences to the Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Mish'al Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Subah, following the passing of Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Subah. The Algerian Prime Minister's statement noted that the Emir expressed sincere thanks and great appreciation for the condolences and sympathy from President Tebboune and the Algerian people. The Emir also highlighted the strong relations between the two countries and praised President Tebboun's important role in the success of the Arab Summit held in Algeria. The 10th high-level seminar on security and peace in Africa concluded in Oran, Algeria, with achieved consensus and commitments to address security and political challenges collectively. Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, in the concluding speech, praised the realistic approach taken to tackle issues like unconstitutional changes of governments, terrorism, and organized crime affecting peace and development in Africa. Let's follow the report.
Of the draft.
Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf concluded the 10th high-level symposium on security and peace in Africa with a resounding commitment to addressing the continent's security challenges. Attaf commended the session's outcomes, emphasizing a pragmatic approach to combat unconstitutional changes of governments, terrorism, and organized crime.
نثمن أيما تثمين.
We highly appreciate the consensus, commitments, and recommendations made in this session, focusing on a practical and forward-looking approach to enhance collective efforts in responding effectively to security and political challenges on our continent. This includes addressing the concerning rise in the constitutional changes of government. Our discussion also emphasized the urgent threat of terrorism and organized crime, which jeopardize peace, security, development, and prosperity in the region.
Asserting Africa's readiness for a new era in peace operations, Attaf championed the principles of African solutions to African problems. He spotlighted the unity of African members within the UN Security Council, criticizing the body as shackled and ineffective.
أن استعداد قارتنا للمساهمة في بلورة
Our continent's commitment to shaping a new era of peace operations in Africa, guided by the principles of African solutions to African problems, reflects a strong dedication to international collaboration. We aim to fulfill our responsibility under the United Nations Charter for Collective Security. We take pride in the African members of Security Council, forming a prominent political bloc. Our continent stands out by defining a unique continental covenant adhered to by its representatives. The expansion of our African group, with countries like the Republic of Guyana joining, highlights the credibility and attractiveness we've gained in a council marked by contradictions and polarization.
Attaf reaffirmed Algeria's willingness to undertake a crucial role in the UN Security Council.
بين الجزائر اليوم على تم الاستعداد لتولي العهدة.
Algeria today is fully prepared to assume a mandate entrusted to it in the Security Council, fully committed to coordination, cooperation, and solidarity with the African brothers, and fully adhering to the right approach established by the UN path that is pure and loyal to the face of Africa, which is firmly rooted in African values and principles, and unique in its purposes, goals, and objectives.
Algeria, represented by Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, strongly commits to addressing Africa's security challenges through a practical and forward-looking approach. Attaf highlighted Algeria's pledges to play a crucial role, aligning with the Oran process, signaling a significant step towards reshaping the international narrative on peace and security for a stable Africa.
And in the same context, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf engaged in bilateral talks with Ugandan Foreign Minister Hanjun Malemba on Monday. The discussions took place during their participation in the 10th high-level seminar on peace and security in Africa in Oran, Western Algeria. The Ugandan Foreign Minister characterized the meeting as friendly, emphasizing the importance of enhancing bilateral relations, intensifying political consultations, and fostering economic exchanges between Algeria and Uganda.
cordial discussion with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. We have been discussing on how to deepen our bilateral relations, especially to do with political consultation, but also to increase on economic integration, economic bilateral relations between the Republic of Uganda and the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. The meeting has been so warm.
Similarly, Angolan Foreign Affairs Minister Antonio Tete characterized the bilateral relations between Algeria and Angola as excellent. Following discussions with Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, Tete expressed Angola's desire to enhance the traditional and historical ties that link the two nations.
We've touched upon the relations between Algeria and Angola, which are traditional, historical and excellent relations. We have reviewed the course of relations and our prospects that we want to launch in order to continue to enrich them even more. We also touched upon Oran track, a track that we attach great importance to give its contribution to our analysis as an African continent on peace and security issues.
And in different news, on Monday, the UN Security Council will convene for an open briefing session followed by closed consultations on the situation in Libya. Abdullah Bathili, the special representative and head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, is set to brief council members on recent developments in the country. Additionally, Bathili will provide updates on recovery and reconstruction efforts in eastern Libya, particularly in the city of Derna, following the devastating storm on September 10th that caused floods and significant damage.
Some Libyan leaders continue to drag their feet and do not for now show a decisive commitment to end the long-standing stalemate that has caused so much suffering for the ordinary Libyans. Electoral laws alone cannot make elections happen if relevant actors are not genuinely committed to their implementation.
More stories making headlines around the globe with Sofiane Kinturi.
Bankole Adeoye, the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, reiterated the African Union's call for Sudanese army and rapid support forces to uphold the commitments outlined in the Jeddah roadmap. The military council in Niger confirmed that ousted President Mohamed Bazoum is in good health and still at the presidential palace. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamine Zein accused the economic community of West African states of causing a health and humanitarian crisis through continued sanctions. The European Union and Kenya signed a groundbreaking trade deal, the first between the EU and the African countries since 2016. Kenyan President William Ruto and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen marked the occasion in Nairobi. After 10 years of negotiations, the agreement grants duty-free access for Kenyan products to the European market and includes commitment to sustainable development, environmental protection, and labor rights. The National Elections Authority in Egypt declared President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi the winner of third term lasting until 2030. Sisi secured 89.6% of valid votes, totaling 45.2 million. Serbia's ruling Serbian Progressive Party, led by President Alexander Vučić, secured a decisive victory in parliamentary election. Vučić announced the coalition's attainment over 127 seats out of 250, and official results monitored independently show the Progressive Party coalition with over 56% support, while the pro-European opposition coalition secured second place with more than 23%. Algerian footballer Youssef Attal faces legal action as the French public prosecution seeks a 10-month suspended prison sentence and a €55,000 fine. The charges relate to Attal expressing solidarity with the Palestinian cause in a video. The trial delved into Attal's social media use and his admiration for the Russian Muslim boxer Islam Makhachev. Previously, French Football League banned Attal for 7 matches in connection with the incident.
Well, that's all for our program for tonight. From me, Karim Fazakri, and from all 24 News team, thank you for tuning in. For more news, you can always visit our social media platforms that are under your service. Until next time, good night and take care.